I'm Jason Benitez, the Oxnard Police Chief, and this is a report to the Oxnard City Council providing a periodic police department update. The recommendation before the council this evening is that the City Council receive and file a verbal update report from the police department. In compliance with Measure M, this verbal report has been pre-recorded. Starting off with the Oxnard Police Department, April is Autism Acceptance Month, and we are promoting autism awareness and autism acceptance during this month. This symbol you see here is actually a special patch that the Oxnard Police Department officers wear that we have authorized them to wear for the month of April to promote the awareness. I'll mention this later in the presentation, but look to see a number of events related to this that we'll be participating in. And for starters, I always like to revisit our City Council priorities as well as our Police Department priorities. The Council has clearly stated that it is a priority to maintain 911 emergency response times, as well as to restore community policing, both very, very important portions to public safety. Within the Police Department, our big three priorities are community safety, community engagement, and maintaining a culture of success. And when we speak of community safety, we are dealing primarily with matters related to crime, to traffic, to community policing and neighborhood problem-solving efforts. Community engagement is our efforts to maintain dialogue and communication and relationships with our community by providing a number of positive interactions, as well as providing information to our community to keep them aware of what's going on in presentations even such as this. Maintaining a culture of success, we've talked about having good training, having good staffing, and equipping our employees to be successful at what they do, which lends towards being a successful organization. Having effective and contemporary policies and procedures, and also especially recognizing our employees and focusing on officer wellness. The work goes on in our police department. We like to give this presentation every few months to the council. It's very important for our community as well to see these. And we just have some officers here performing a variety of functions over the past several months, ranging from some drone operation support to doing some traffic investigations, dispatching, and some of the recent work that was done at Halico a couple of months ago. Here we have other officers engaging our community. Officer Hector Balderrama up in the top left corner, performing some duties. And looking at the lower right-hand picture, we have our officers actually performing some child seat installations for some of our community members. And here you see in the other photos, our community members being helped by our officers. The first thing I'd like to talk about here is our crime update. As we've mentioned before, that we report our annual crime statistics to the Department of Justice, and we use the Universal Crime Reporting crime statistics, which are broken into two categories, violent crime and property crime. And we use crime types that are comparable across the nation. Under violent crimes, we have homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. And then under property crimes, we have burglary, motor vehicle theft, larceny, which is also referred to as theft, and arson. And so in our news release last month, we were pleased to announce that our UCR crime statistics for 2021 were 18.01% lower than 2020. It's a very significant crime reduction. In looking at that overall 18.01% reduction, it was almost a 20% reduction in property crimes, as you can see in the bottom half of the chart, where we had significant reductions in reported burglaries, motor vehicle thefts with almost a 41% reduction. Larceny was down by about 12% as well. In the violent crimes category, robberies were down by a third, lending to an overall reduction of 6.7%. You will notice that the homicide numbers for 2020 and 2021, there is a significant increase in those. And we believe that the events of 2020 really lent towards things slowing down. It kind of skewed stats in a number of different categories that we keep, which lended towards the increase. 2021's numbers are essentially returning back to almost the annual average that we've had at our city for the past many years. But looking at this historically, I was asked, like, how do our crime stats for 2021 compare to previous years? So if you look at this goes back to 1990. So we're covering quite a long period of time here. And when you look at 2021, that we are really actually at the second lowest period in reported crimes in that period of time. The only year that was less was 2011, with about 400 crimes less than we had reported in 2021. So very interesting to see our downward crime trends in our city and how far we've actually come since the early 90s. One of the big topics has to do with injury and fatal collisions. I've spoken to the council and the public about this before, is that Oxnard has its fatality rate. We're looking at the numbers here. In the upper left-hand corner, you see in black, the injury collisions that we record each year. You can see that we've maintained a fairly consistent average over these years of between 1,000 and 1,100 between 2018 and 2021, with 2020 also being an outlier to this. You can see that is also reflected in the fatal traffic collisions, where we had 9. We typically have more than that in a given year. It's usually around 16 to 17. In looking at 2021's fatal collisions, a further breakdown of this shows that we really had a high incidence of pedestrian and bicycle related collisions, which were fatal, which contributed to nearly 50% of the overall picture. When you look at vehicles and motorcycles, you can see that those were actually, many of the primary collision factors involved speed. And in my last report to council, I mentioned how the California Office of Traffic Safety maintains statistics, and they maintain rankings in city categories. In this particular case, this category that Oxnard is in is for cities in California that are between populations of 100,000 and 249,999 residents. And so generally being ranked number 1 is not good. And so when we last, as it stands today, with 2019 being the most recent statistics that OTS has in terms of fatal and injury collisions within that particular category, Oxnard is 4th out of 59 cities. Alcohol-involved collisions, 1st out of 59 cities. Motorcycle-related collisions, 29th out of 59, so about in the middle. Pedestrian, 19 out of 59. Bicyclist, 19 out of 59. And the numbers to the right of that show the prior year's rankings. So we have made some improvements in some areas. However, we have kind of set back in some others. For example, in the alcohol involved, where we were number 2, and we are currently, as of 2019 statistics show that we are number 1 in alcohol involved traffic collisions. So our priorities here for traffic enforcement, we have instructed our staff that we really place great emphasis on dangerous, distracted, and impaired drivers. Sometimes we call that the 3 Ds: dangerous, distracted, and DUI. And so that's an important thing to note, because you can see, as I mentioned in the previous slide, how Oxnard's ranking is what it is. In the meantime, one of the biggest things that we come across here are speed-related complaints, loud vehicle-related complaints, and school zones. Those are actually 3 of the largest complaints that we get from members of our community, and they often ask us what it is that we are doing about this. And so what I'll tell you, as I've told other groups, and is that we issue speed-related citations. That is actually a priority. So last year we issued over 3,000 citations. The muffler and exhaust citations, now that's a mechanical violation, and we have enforced that when we see it. We do get a lot of complaints about that, but please note that the officer has to actually see that person, or actually hear that person and see that particular vehicle driving. Cell phone and distracted driving citations, we've written over 1,500 last year. And it's good to say that we take school safety very seriously. And during the course of the year, we've done 48, so 4 dozen school zone enforcement operations. And that's in addition to some of the awareness efforts that we've been making to let our parents and those people dropping kids off at school, like what we expect of them and what some safety tips are in terms of letting their kids go to and from school. I'd like to park a little bit more onto traffic safety and talk about some of the grants that we have going on here. Currently, we have 3 grants that provide additional funding for outreach and education and enhanced enforcement to address alcohol collisions, injury collisions, speed-related issues, bike and pedestrian safety, and reckless driving. And so working with these grants, this gives us a little extra ability to put officers out on overtime to work these particular details so they can focus their efforts on that. The grant funding was also secured to install red light indicators, and you can see these on the left-hand side of the screen. Based on 2020 collision data, we had experienced over 300 collisions at intersections caused by red lights and failure to yield violations. These red light indicators, they provide a safe approach to red light enforcement. The first set of indicators, as you can see here in the photo, were installed at Rose Avenue and Gonzales Road just actually a few days ago. And additional devices are going to be installed across the city. These devices, combined with officers conducting traffic enforcement at these intersections, have been proven to reduce auto collisions. And what this really does is this allows the officer to clearly see when the light is red. So as you can see in this photo, the actual red light is facing the opposite way. This indicator tells the officer that the light is actually red, so that light is in sync with the light that is facing the motorist. In terms of street racing and other forms of reckless driving, these are various dangerous behaviors, and they cause a lot of injuries on our highways. So the police department has investigated over 1,700 speed-related collisions since the year 2017, which includes 16 fatal collisions due to speeding and what we describe as reckless driving. Additionally, the police department has received numerous complaints of these modified exhaust vehicles. As a result, our traffic unit has conducted several joint operations with the California Highway Patrol to address this. The Oxnard Police Department was also the first agency in Ventura County to use a court order to authorize a 30-day impound for vehicles involved in reckless driving behavior. So last year on its own, 7 drivers involved in street racing and reckless driving had their vehicles seized and had to pay over $2,000 each in tow fees. We also applied for grant funding to purchase additional speed display boards as a method to reduce speed-related issues on some problematic roadways in our city. You can see this photo here was taken from Oxnard Boulevard near Doris. The speed display boards offer an alternative method to increase community awareness about speeding and gain voluntary compliance with speed limits. This is often referred to in some circles as a traffic calming device. These devices also collect traffic volume and speed data and help us with assessing where we need to enforce. The speed display boards will assist in reducing collisions and increase speed awareness in the community. 2 display boards are currently mounted Oxnard Boulevard, as you see here, south of Roderick Avenue, and then at Gonzales Road, east of Snow Avenue. Let's talk about firearms, and this is an ever-growing concern that we have in our community. And I've spoken to the council in prior presentations about the prevalence of firearms in our society, the proliferation of guns, the proliferation of firearms violations that have taken place. But I really want to specifically speak to ghost guns. And ghost guns are unregulated firearms that anyone, including minors, including prohibited purchasers, can buy and build without having to go through a background check. Ghost guns are unserialized, and they are untraceable firearms that can be bought online and assembled at home. They are assembled by individuals from parts or kits that include generally one or a couple of unfinished pieces, generally the frame or the receiver of the weapon, and requires the purchaser just to do some minor drilling to make the gun fully operational. And because of a loophole in federal regulations, these do-it-yourself weapons don't need to have serial numbers, and the kit or the individual pieces can be sold without the background check that someone who purchased a gun from a federally licensed dealer would have to undergo. So it is a felony to possess an unserialized weapon in the city of Oxnard, actually in the state of California. And what we see here in this photo are a number of ghost guns. They're all a very similar frame design that's known as a P80. And it's based on a Glock pistol design. And you can see how ornate these have gotten. You can see some of these have laser scopes. If you look at the one in the lower right, that's a magazine drum, which I believe holds 50 bullets. And as I present this pre-recorded message, it's of note, last night we actually arrested somebody with a ghost gun that had an automatic fire switch on it that could really turn that Glock-based frame into a virtual machine gun. And this particular person had been arrested 6 times for possession of this type of weapon. To give you an example of how prevalent this is in our at our department and our city, and actually I will say beyond our city, this is a sample from our watch commander's log from Friday, March 18th. And you can see in the CO's log, what we do have is we note significant incidents that occurred during a shift, so we can pass that information on to the next shift. And you can see in this evening, there are 3 significant gun arrest incidents that took place. I also happened to speak to another chief in the county, and on this same evening, I believe they had 2 out of 2 of their most significant incidents involved firearms. So it's safe to say that this is a community concern that we all need to be aware of, and we are working very hard to address the issues of illegal firearm possession. And one thing I will note on this particular log is that the 3rd entry on there is the non-fatal overdose. And so let's talk a little bit about overdoses. As you know, each year, drug overdose deaths in the US have skyrocketed. And I believe in 2018, we were at 64,000. 2019, it went up to 68,000. And for 2021, in the United States, 101,260 people have died because of drug overdoses. This is a national epidemic. Let's take a little bit closer look at this within the city of Oxnard. Just in this year, or in the year 2021, the Oxnard Police Department officers responded to 248 overdose calls. Now, per the medical examiner, we had 82 fatal overdose calls in the city of Oxnard. The prior year, 2020, we had 52 fatals with a smaller number of overdose calls, 226. This year, to date, just from January 1st to the middle of March, Oxnard officers have responded to over 4 dozen overdose calls, and 8 of which have been fatal. And since the crafting of this report, I believe there are maybe 1 or possibly 2 additional fatal overdose calls that have occurred, which also in turn lends towards the application of naloxone by Oxnard Police Department officers. And as I've mentioned, naloxone is also known as Narcan, and it is an opiate receptor blocker. And what it does is it actually helps revive persons who have overdosed. Just to give you an indication, in the application of this medication to overdose victims, you can see that from 2020 to 2021, the number more than tripled. And just less than 1 quarter into this year, we're already at 14 applications. Looking at the council's priority of maintaining 911 emergency response times. Now, generally, it is wanted to provide the council with an update of where we are currently at. And what we aim to do is to respond under 5 minutes, to the highest priority of calls. We call those priority 1+ calls at our department. And so our history of maintaining these times has slightly gone up for 2021. However, we have been able to maintain the under 5 minute response time metric that we have established. And it's generally an established metric for public safety response to highest priority emergencies. We attribute some of the increases to possibly some staffing issues and some staffing challenges that we're having, and I'll speak to that later in the presentation. Well, actually, I'll speak to it now because it's on this slide. So looking at our staffing picture, we have also recognized that it is a council priority and a department priority to increase our community policing and neighborhood problem-solving efforts. So looking at the bottom of the slide, you can see that we have our community policing team, our beat coordinator program. Now, we have to first recognize that first responder resources take the highest priority for everything. So we have to make sure that we have a healthy first responder element before we can actually start branching out into other assignments. So it currently stands within our department because of our vacancy situation at the department that we have a number of personnel in specialty assignments like traffic, our special enforcement unit, our neighborhood policing team, our detectives are actually working a designated number of patrol shifts just to cover first responder duties during these patrol shifts. And that's because of our vacancy situation. When I speak to the vacancy situation, we are currently at 20 as of April 4th. Now, this is an issue that almost every Ventura County city has been facing. Every Ventura County law enforcement agency has been facing. The chiefs and departments within the Tri-Counties region are facing, and across the state of California. Having spoken to a number of chiefs over the past several months, this is literally one of the biggest issues that California law enforcement is currently facing. And that includes a declining number of applicants that are seeking to become police officers or peace officers. And so it has been the department's one of its largest challenges. And since I've taken the position of chief, we have stayed about the same in terms of our vacancies over the past year. And that is largely because we have had lower application numbers, and we have also experienced high attrition rates in our academies. So in order to address this, we have really stepped up our recruitment efforts, and we created a position within the department, a sergeant's position, whose sole purpose is to focus on recruiting and getting quality candidates hired. And so we're making some headway with that. This number from 20 was actually recently reduced. We are sending candidates or entry-level officers to a total of 4 academies a year instead of 2 in previous years. However, the attrition rate has also kind of shown itself in all the academy environments as well. So as it stands today, when you look at these numbers, we have 20 vacancies. We also have 21 officers that are out on injury, or they are on modified duty where they're not fully functional, they're not out in the field, they're working at a desk because of an injury. And you look at the other numbers we currently have 1 in the Golden West Academy, which will graduate this July. We have 6 that are going into the April 2022 Academy, which is slated to start in mid-April. We currently have 6 in field training, and we currently have 8 that will be in a pre-field training environment as of April 4th. So in short, staffing is a very serious challenge to not just Oxnard Police Department, but to agencies across the state. And in order to be able to really bolster our community policing and neighborhood problem-solving efforts, we need to close the vacancy gap, and we need to recruit successful, qualified candidates. We especially love to get Oxnard candidates. Local hiring, local talent is often highly valued by us. It actually always is highly valued. It's something we do seek, but we do need to close this vacancy rate before we can expect to restructure our neighborhood policing plan. So with the neighborhood policing plan as such, what we are doing is we are hoping to add 2 positions to the neighborhood policing team this July, in such that we would have what is essentially the equivalent of our beat coordinator program from several years back. Each position each beat would be staffed with a beat coordinator, which would be a police corporal position that would be there to help coordinate the beat teams in addressing neighborhood issues. And as I say that, those are the things that are more long-term. Talked about staffing. These are some photos of just some hiring and recruiting efforts. Some of our officers recently being sworn in. Just to talk about this, I mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation. We have a number of upcoming events now that things are opening up again. You can see that April is a very busy month for the police department. Last Friday, we graduated some cadets from the Ventura County Criminal Justice Training Center. And then throughout the month of April, you can expect to see these are the dates and locations of some of our autism acceptance pop-ups where we will be working with the Ventura County Autism Society to raise funds. We will be selling the patches, we will be selling t-shirts and other items to raise money for that nonprofit. April 19th, we have a little catching up to do here. We are having a promotional ceremony where we will recognize our sworn and professional staff that have recently been promoted from one rank to another, or recently hired. And we will also be catching up on giving out their service pins. And so we we'll look forward to doing that. April 20th is our employee recognition ceremony, which is essentially our Officer of the Year ceremony. And we give out a number of other awards in different categories: Dispatcher of the Year, Chief's Award of Excellence, Professional Staff Member of the Year, and some others. So we're looking forward to recognizing the hard work that our employees do every day. April 21st is actually kind of a very I call it a bittersweet day for Oxnard Police Department. It is actually Eric Sonstegard's last day at Oxnard Police Department. He is retiring on the following day, which will be his 26th anniversary with the Oxnard Police Department. It's been a great pleasure to work with him side by side for so long, to have such a good partner. We will miss him very, very much. And as such, with his retirement, Commander Christopher Williams will be taking the position of Assistant Chief as of April 30th. And on May 11th, after a 3-year hiatus, the Oxnard Police Department's memorial ceremony will return back to the live setting. It's typically held at 10 a.m. in front of the police station. So hopefully members of our community can join us to honor the 7 officers that paid the ultimate sacrifice, and were killed in the line of duty. So we always want to remember and honor them. There's also a virtual scholarship art festival going on right now. We have this ad here that our Family Protection Unit is actually looking to create actually to award a scholarship for the best entry. There's more information can be found here on this slide, as well as on Facebook. And just as I close this up, great work does not happen by accident. Our officers are out there making every effort to engage our community in a variety of ways. As I mentioned, community engagement is an important priority to our department. It's important to our community. It is important for us to realize that we are on the same side and that we can work together to do great things. Some more photos of that, some events over the past few months, including our mounted unit, which I think you may have seen at a few events here and there, which is, I'll talk more about that in a future presentation. And lastly, for those watching this presentation, anyone interested in joining the Oxnard Police Department, we are hiring. We have a rolling application process. The information can simply be found right there. Apply today at joinoxnardpd.com. We have recruitment information on our website. And if you have any questions, someone can always just call 805-385-8300. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.